Welcome back to Track Talk. Today we'll be running through a game of 1817. We'll just sum up the auction here, starting with Jeremy. He has Train Station, Union Bridge, and Major Mail. He has the least amount of cash, and he does have some utility with the train station private in particular. He has tied for the most bidding value. Damana, he has lots of coal in Pittsburgh. He has nearly the most cash, $75 behind the cash leader. And the second, I guess, technically, if the first two players are tied, the third most bid value. So I like his start. Lots of coal around Pittsburgh, so he'll be able to take nice advantage of those privates. Ken Kuhn has the most cash, the least bid value, and has only minor mail. So he will be potentially having lots of cash, having to take fewer loans than the rest of the players. Has a pretty wide open start, but did miss out a lot on bid value, taking advantage of the money provided by the bank. Ujung, he has 4 different privates: bridge, mountain, coal, and mail. So he has decent potential for a Charleston start with the coal, the mountain, and a bridge company. Um, Jeremy R. also has some potential for that as well. And with the train station, if he were to get Charleston, maybe I'll drop a quick token in Pittsburgh in green as well. So those two players may be looking at Charleston. I assume Damano will be getting Pittsburgh. We saw in our last commentary that trying to steal the Pittsburgh company from the Pittsburgh minor owner generally is not a super efficient strategy. And then Ken, a little bit difficult to predict where he's going to end up since he doesn't need to take loans or potentially will not need to take as many loans. Maybe able to just sit on fewer trains and wait for the more expensive trains to come out and snap those up. Alternatively, could just spam out trains early in the game. So it really just has kind of a lot of potential. The downside to this strategy is he doesn't have 330, so he's not going to be floating 3 companies for 110. May have to just sit on 2 companies or use the fact that he doesn't have to take out max loans to par for less than 55. So that's my thoughts on that auction, and we will jump into the stock round. Jeremy leading it off, and he's starting on Charleston. So he's going to be leaping right to that opportunity with the train station potentially. We'll see if he actually puts the train station in this company or not. And I guess first of all, we'll see if he actually gets this. I always assume that the person that auctions it is going to end up getting it, but of course that's not the case. Damana is overbidding him. So Pittsburgh and Charleston would be good, especially if you're able to take advantage of all that coal he has. That would be interesting. We'll see if he's allowed to get away with this. Ken is passing. Ujang, he's bidding a ton for this. This can be a very expensive start. Ujang and Jeremy are the 2 players we identified as, wanting Charleston, so not entirely surprised that they're bidding this up, but it is getting quite expensive. Jeremy passing. Damana also passing, so Ujang will end up with it. Par price of 80. This will allow Damana to lead us off next. And he's putting the bridge company and some coal into this company. Does he also want to put Mountain Engineers in there? Maybe. He's going to hold on to that for now. Damana, he is starting a company now, and he starts on New York. It looks like it's going to be South New York. Okay. I always am a little bit hesitant about parring New York, Philadelphia, or Baltimore first. I'd like to see the other players kind of play their hand and then try and, negotiate or par above them, see if I can get a leap on them in terms of track development early in the game. We'll see if this works out for him. He only bids it, or he only starts it at 100. Someone, if they overbid him, will be able to get the 2 loan ability. I don't know if he's going to have anybody competing for him. Ken Kuhn's joining the fray. Ujang passing, Jeremy passing. So if Damana bids this up one more time, probably will get it for 110, would be my guess. And he does. Perfect for him. He puts the steel mill into this. So potentially giving his Pittsburgh company the opportunity for an extra track lay in yellow. Ken Kuhn now is picking Cleveland, so first Cleveland company, and he's starting that at 110. We'll see if anybody wants to overbid him. Jeremy is overbidding, so Jeremy has no companies. I forgot that he lost out on Charleston, and we'll see if he's able to walk away with Cleveland. Cleveland with a train station, still potentially getting a token early into Pittsburgh. No synergy with the Union Bridge, really. So he does pick that up for 120. And now we see Baltimore. Baltimore is starting at a 200. Wow. Um, so this may jump over the New York South Company, which is going back to what I was saying earlier about, the first person to par one of those three companies is potentially setting himself up for some pain in yellow. Nobody wants to overbid 200, and that will leave him with his first company. He's going to have a ton of cash in that company. This is the player that had all the cash to begin with, and he will be able to start one more company at 120, it looks like. So Baltimore having a ton of cash means it can run a ton of trains. Only two spokes and only one token max it can run is two trains, but they could be lucrative trains. We'll see if he's able to develop this expensive track terrain. GT now, second city or second token in Cleveland, and Demana is overbidding for that. Jeremy is going up to 130. Wow. Some expensive pars in this start. Nobody's confining themselves to the $55 pars. Belt now going on North New York, and this is Demana, so potentially his last company. Oh, sorry, no, he has 240, so one more company for him after this, probably. And he's only auctioning it for 100, which means that he's not going to be able to buy all the trains he wants necessarily. But from New York, you're only really able to run one train, so I guess he is aware of that. Belt is floated. PLE now. Is this going to be Pittsburgh? It's Philadelphia. Okay. And looks like Ken will be getting that for 120. So he has two companies now, PLE and H was Baltimore. So PLE and H will be working together. And if we look at the market, H is bid above New York and PLE is bid beneath New York. So depending on how this track develops, we may see New York getting cut out in yellow. UR now going on Richmond. Richmond is being bid on by Yujang. He has the A&A. A&A is in Charleston. I think he has the mountain busting private. He does, so it won't be the end of the world for him to link up these two tokens down the road. Richmond, not the highest priority start. I'm a little bit surprised that Albany, for instance, doesn't get picked up before there. And looks like he ends up with it. WC, this is being put on Cincinnati. Okay. And is he the player that has Charleston? I don't believe so. Charleston is the A&A, which is Ujang. So Cincinnati, not necessarily going to be getting any help in building track from Charleston. The north of the board seems a little underdeveloped right now. Bess, so this will be the Pittsburgh company, putting a bunch of coal in there, it looks like. And looks like everybody's passing. We'll be into our first operating round. All right. Baltimore first off. This was bid up to 200, or I think just initially started the bid at 200. So, of course, going to be operating first. And we'll see if he wants to cooperate with his Philadelphia company. I assume he is. Looks like it. So, kind of bad news for New York. Depending on how Philadelphia tile is laid, New York may very well not have a run. If Philadelphia wants to head over to Pittsburgh early, for instance, with a gentle curve, we could see the New York track being cut off. Buying a single two train. little bit interesting. No loans taken. Could have bought another one and hoped to get a run into Richmond. But I guess you can't guarantee that Richmond's going to be interested in cooperating with you. Although if you lay that track for it, I imagine it probably would be interested just because Baltimore is an extra $10 value. You are now. He is laying towards Charleston. Has the mountain engineers in this company, so not too worried about all those mountains. Is taking a loan and will pick up a single 2 train. Charleston now, placing the bridge and not laying any coal for now, but it has set up to lay a bunch of coal into Atlanta and down to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh also has coal, so we'll be laying coal towards Charleston and potentially towards Philadelphia. Buying a single 2 train, not going to have the highest runs, but I guess can't depend on Pittsburgh laying track that would be helpful for it, and is going to have to lay 2 tracks to Atlanta anyways because he didn't want to pay the train costs this round. If he had laid 1 track, if Pittsburgh cooperated and built south, which there's a fair chance that it would, he could potentially run 2 trains. Pittsburgh, what is Pittsburgh's other company? This is Damana. So he's running, looks like Belt and AS. So he's got both New York tokens. I guess that means that maybe Pittsburgh is not going to be rushing down to Charleston. Maybe more interested in heading over to Philadelphia. Bess, he actually doesn't lay any track for himself, and that's because he wants to use the private that I think is in AS to lay that special B tile. So a little bit inefficient for him to have parred Bess ahead of the AS. I bet he wishes that he was able to run the AS first in retrospect and lay the Pittsburgh tile and then be able to lay 2 tracks out of Pittsburgh. So that's a miss for him. Picks up a single 2 train. GT looks like he's heading towards Pittsburgh, or at least telegraphing that he will be heading that way. And he's buying a single 2 train as well. NYOW heading down to Cincinnati. He actually double lays. And Cincinnati is his other company, so just looking to cooperate. This, of course, helps the GT as well. GT may be wishing he'd bought a second train now. Would have had the cash to do it exactly. Another $100 and then $5 for the interest. So maybe a missed opportunity for him there. Of course, I guess this means he can potentially pick up a 2+ train. NYOW taking loans. Looks like he's going to be buying 2 trains. He sees the opportunity that the GT missed out on and buys 2 trains. PLE. He has a connection with Baltimore and looks like he's playing friendly with New York South. So good news for him. He's not going to have to fall back until green. He's buying 2 trains, has 2 good routes. A&S. He's laying the Pittsburgh track and looks like he defers paying $20 for the extra track lay, but will have a link up pretty much guaranteed with Philadelphia, so no rush there. Buying a single train, it looks like. WC in Cincinnati, laying the bridge token and his home. Will have 2 runs if he wants them, and has just enough cash to pay the interest and get those 2 trains. So nice for him. He's going to be able to hit Atlanta. Not able to take advantage of any coal, obviously, but will have a decent run. Belt now. We'll see if he wants to head up to Albany or towards Boston. Albany would be a lot cheaper for him. And he may want to buy trains here and then buy them into other companies, potentially. Bess, for instance, could use more trains. He'll be buying them across operating order, I guess, unless he were to merge the companies. All right, so let's just head into our merge round. Let's look at the players' positions. Housatonic and PLE, these are the Baltimore and Philadelphia companies. Don't know that you need to grow these up just yet. You're not going to really have all the runs without laying expensive track. Probably won't have 2 runs for the Housatonic regardless, um, unfortunately. And Housatonic's already operating first, almost assuredly, so you can be pretty confident that you're going to be picking up some plus trains. I don't know that he needs to make any changes in this mergers and acquisition round. Ujang, you are in A&A. A&A in Charleston, you are in Richmond. Again, don't know that he needs to necessarily grow up. He's in the hook, or he has the capability of picking up a 2+ train already. Unlikely that people are going to be jumping enough companies ahead of him that he loses out on those. So now we're on to Jeremy, GT, NYOW, and WC. GT and NYOW are in Cleveland, and then WC down here in Cincinnati. Does he control all the... I think I didn't realize that. So he has both Cleveland companies. So I was talking about how he missed an opportunity to buy a train and get into Pittsburgh, but he has all the routes that he wants. I didn't realize that he had both tokens there. So good for him. Probably doesn't want to grow up the 2 Cleveland tokens, or sorry, merge the 2 Cleveland tokens just yet, since he has full control there, and by merging them, he would lose one of those tokens. He wants that NYOW to operate late, so doesn't want to merge it either for that reason. If he was going to merge anything, maybe merge the GT and the WC. But again, the NYOW wants to have access to green to drop a token in Pittsburgh. Could grow that up for a little bit more cash if he's hoping to operate late, pick up a 3 train in the NYOW, run all those trains out of Pittsburgh in green. That might be a strategy. And then Damana, he's the Pittsburgh player, so he wants to operate pretty late too, I think, to take advantage of a green Pittsburgh. Only has 1 train, so he may actually want to merge 2 of these companies, potentially the A and S, to get that train running out of Pittsburgh in green. The problem is, of course, that he would increase his stock value and then potentially not be running in green. Regardless, he may want to get more trains into the best somehow. Could merge the belt and the A&S and then buy a train down from that new company into BESS. We'll see what he wants to do. Definitely some options. But going back to this, we, I think, decided that Ken probably wasn't going to be doing anything, and we'll see. So far, nobody's doing anything. And in the acquisition round, don't imagine we'll see any friendly sales, so we'll move quickly through that. So that's the danger of trying to predict players' actions, is that you spend a lot of time doing it and then they don't pan out. We'll try and do that better in future merger and acquisition rounds. H, first to operate. Limited track, don't know that he wants to pay the $20 cost to get down into Richmond or starting over to Pittsburgh. May just see him passing. Instead, he will be laying track towards Pittsburgh and runs a single train for 50. He's going to take a loan and buy a 2+, it looks like, and then pays his interest. You are heading straight to Pittsburgh. Does have the mountain laying track. A little bit surprised he's not heading towards Charleston, but I guess anticipating that the Charleston is going to lay coal here and he wouldn't actually be able to get over there. Of course, this track is not going to head directly into Pittsburgh. He's going to have to wait for this to upgrade. So running just a 2 train, kind of a lackluster run of only 40. And he's going to have to pay some interest. He has max loans, but can pick up a 2+ train, which he does. So 2 of those are left. Charleston now. Imagine he'll be laying coal towards Atlanta, instead heading up to Pittsburgh. Okay. So of your options, right? Atlanta, same value, and the coal isn't going to be available to BESS if you head down to Atlanta. So a little bit surprised that he's heading north first. Probably would have been a more efficient play to head towards Atlanta first. And let Pittsburgh lay that track for you. Running his train. And he's also taking loans for the 2+, so just one of those left. BESS, kind of a underwhelming run for him. He missed out a little bit on track opportunities, wasn't able to lay any track of his own, and only has 1 train, but will be picking up a 2+ train probably. He's heading down to Baltimore, does lay some coal there. and he actually withholds for interest, it looks like. Now we'll be seeing the two Cleveland companies running. So let's just look at the B tile here, because Richmond is quickly finding itself surrounded by coal tiles. So depending on how this B tile is laid, um, he's going to be in trouble. He needs to really hope that this chicken foot spoke gets laid with the correct orientation, or else he's going to have pretty poor prospects down here in the south. In green can start upgrading into Baltimore potentially, but that's no guarantee of that either. GT, First Cleveland, probably laying that river tile, and actually doesn't need to. Could run into Cincinnati for about the same, but he does. I guess he wants to open that up for his other companies which are running two trains, the NYOW specifically. So again, unfortunate for the best that it's operating when it is. If it was operating later with more trains, could take advantage of a lot of the track that the other players are laying for it. PLE, he runs into New York. Good news for Damana. And he's going to run for 110, which he pays. NYOW, two trains, no access to green tiles just yet, but able to take advantage of decent revenue out of Cleveland, 30 value city. Running for 220, half paying to cover his interest, not able to pay off any loans. And are there any 2 pluses left? There are not. I don't think anybody's in a position to buy this 3, but it will export because nobody grew up their companies. A&S, no track for him, just running for 60, which he pays. Belt, looks like he's heading up to Albany, and he's going to run for 60 as well. WC, last company to operate, probably linking up with Atlanta, running 2 trains. 120, and he half pays that to cover his interest. So slow start to the game because nobody grew up in the last merger and conversion round. This round, I think basically the big change is that you know you're going to be in green. So operating order in terms of sandbagging and trying to operate later is a little bit less important. In fact, a lot less important. You may want to operate much earlier now in order to get a jump on a Pittsburgh token or important green upgrade, for instance. So H and PLE, they do have access into, actually they will have access into Pittsburgh potentially. This Baltimore token is also up for grabs, so they may want to grow up here with at least one of these companies in order to get an extra token. Need to be a little bit careful you don't grow up and start opening yourself up to shorts, but with a share value of only 80 or 60 and a bunch of 2 trains, probably not the highest risk for shorts. So he does convert, opening himself up for a few more loans and an extra token. He's buying his shares. Does anybody else want to help capitalize this company? Looks like Damano will jump on there. And H could potentially be getting into Pittsburgh. Going to be a little bit nervous in terms of operating order between Charleston and Cleveland because there's a lot of companies that are already linked up looking to compete for that. We'll see if that works out for him. And who is the extra token? NYOW, if he were to merge with another company, he would shoot up in stock value and also operate potentially ahead of H. He already has a token, so he doesn't have to worry about just converting. Can merge and leapfrog him in operating order. That may be what happens. UR is passing, A&A passing. So exactly as expected, GT and NYOW. I'll take that back. Not exactly as expected. So he does open up a token here. Could have merged NYOW and WC, for instance, and maintain these 2 tokens. In terms of priority, Ken Kuhn has priority, so he may have the first crack at floating a new company, although he really doesn't have enough cash to do that. And Jeremy, on the other hand, if he were to keep his cash, could potentially float a company and snag that Cleveland token again if that's something that he values. GT merging, as noted. He is not going to be sitting on cash. He buys a share. And Ujang is also going to be looking to buy a share. So I think this means that GT probably will be getting that token slot on Pittsburgh Tile. PLE, his other company already grew up. He may want to just sit on the PLE for now. He does convert, so both of his companies are now 5-share companies. And he's buying a share of it to capitalize it. Nobody else looks like they're interested. Bess, converting as well, getting that extra token. He'd probably love to have something on Baltimore, but he's going to be competing against the PLE in Philadelphia for that spot, I think. A&S, so this is the South New York company, um, has a run into Philadelphia currently and may need to grow up to try and get a token there, assuming that the H is heading to Pittsburgh. But we already know that the H is probably going to lose out on the Pittsburgh tile, so actually H may be getting a token on Philadelphia, although he owns a Philadelphia token already, so I don't know that he's motivated to do that. Thinking about it a little bit more, probably the AS wants to grow up and try and get that token. He's passing for now. Belt is passing, and we're into the acquisition round. I don't think there's going to be any friendly sales. We'll just go through that. So we're into the stock round. Not a lot of cash in the game right now. Could see people just by paying shares. Shorting at this phase in the game, pretty risky. The stock value is really not worthwhile in the grand scheme of things, and those 4 trains are quite a ways away. Um, you short a ton of companies here, and you get very little cash. You're not going to be able to buy through all these 3 trains, so all these 2 trains are going to run, and you're just going to pay a ton of money for these shorts. So Jeremy and Diamana might be buying a share here, but might be a pretty quick stock round otherwise. Ken passing, and Jeremy actually passing, and Diamana shorting. He is shorting the GT of all companies, the company almost, well, okay. So is he looking to change operating order here so that the GT does not end up with the Pittsburgh token? That would be a valid reason to do some shorting here. But again, the GT with 3 trains, pretty scary short. This is potentially a very expensive opportunity here. And GT still has options to clear this market. So just by shorting the company, you're not necessarily guaranteeing that it's going to fall back. Damana is running the Belt and the A&S. Are either of those companies up for the Pittsburgh token? They are not. So this is interesting. I'm not entirely sure why he thinks this is a good idea. I guess by shorting, he can float a company in Cleveland, which was opened up, and then steal that token if he floats above the GT and the GT market causes it to fall back. So that may be the strategy. And that was the danger that Jeremy opened himself up for by merging those 2 companies in specific by opening up that Cleveland token. So maybe Damana sees that opportunity. He's going to be taking that. We'll see if he pars anything here. So he's parring a B&A, and he puts it on Cleveland. That's exactly what he's doing. And he floats right above the GT. So he's sniping this Pittsburgh token. Nice play to him. That was pretty preventable, and Jeremy maybe miscalculated by merging the 2 companies he did. So Ujang sees the short, and is he going to start shorting as well? I guess he just is worried that it's going to be falling back. Not entirely sure. So GT taking loans is going to be redeeming these shares, I guess. Did he have to? I don't know that Jeremy is responding correctly here. I don't think that players are shorting this because they don't think it's a healthy company. I think the man is shorting it because he wants to change the operating order. So if I'm Jeremy here, I don't know that I would defend by taking a bunch of loans already. Maybe if they do another short, I would, but I can just redeem those market shares right off the bat um, without taking any loans and hurt Damana that way. So I don't, I mean, it's kind of reflexive if someone's starting to short your company to take loans, but I don't know that he's reading this situation correctly. It could very well be that I'm not reading it correctly, but at least that's where my head's at. Regardless, he's taking loans and does redeem the market shares. Damana is now shorting the H. So why short the H? That's the Baltimore company? It is. 2 trains, going to have 2 runs, pretty good runs. And is he competing against this for any tokens? So his other company is the AS, right? It is. So if he makes the H operate after the AS, that's going to be a tall order. Um, he could potentially snag a token, but he doesn't even have a token. So this is a little bit less understandable to me than his first short. He may regret some of these shorts. Buying the PLE. H takes a loan and is going to clear his market. And Jeremy is buying a treasury share. Ujang buying the H. So everybody's buying this H. It is probably a good company. Maybe they're just trying to punish Demano with these shorts by giving it a bunch of capital so it can lay good track and buy good trains. Best being purchased, always interesting to buy the Pittsburgh company, usually pretty good. And Ujang is now shorting the PLE. PLE in Philadelphia, not really getting much cash, right? So compare this short to a loan. You get $100 for the loan minus the interest, where this is, max 60 minus whatever the revenue you have to pay and then whatever stock appreciation it gets. So almost certainly better to take a loan in this situation. What is he doing with the cash? Not a whole lot, only $60. So he buys another BESS. I guess he could steal the presidency. Demana is obviously able to defend. He already has the cash. So these shorts are not really going to be worthwhile if he's hoping to do that. Demana is shorting the H. Okay, 2 shorts on that company. And defends the presidency of the BESS. Didn't need to short to do that, of course. And everybody passes. So some interesting play there, actually. I like this move from Demana to put the B&A ahead of the GT. I don't really like the rest of those shorts very much. We'll see. I'm not going to go back and calculate how much they hurt their players, but I'm going to assume that they're not going to pay out. Interest, let's see what the interest is here. I don't think it's very high. 20, so mediocre interest rate. Upgrades and steals the Pittsburgh token right away. Good news for him. Taking loans, buying a 3. May want to buy a second train out of one of his other companies to take full advantage of this nice Pittsburgh track. You're going to hold off for now. Could also potentially merge this, I suppose. B&A is a 2-share company. So, actually, sorry, it's a 5-share company. So not going to be able to merge with anybody. Well, he could merge with the BESS and end up with a 10-share company. That would dilute Ujang's investment a little bit. So maybe that's what he's looking at, running 3 trains out of Pittsburgh that way. GT, kind of kicking himself that he missed out on that token, I'm sure. Actually not able to run all 3 of his trains unless he tokens in Cincinnati, which looks like he does. So not the end of the world for him, but would almost certainly have preferred to have the track or token on Pittsburgh, I'm sure. Running for 260, has a ton of loans. Took probably too many loans here. And paying his interest, will be able to pay off a loan in addition to that. Now has 4 trains, will have 4 runs once he opens up Charleston. No guarantee he gets the token there. H, he is in Baltimore, probably links up with Pittsburgh. Instead, gonna upgrade Philadelphia and token that. So bad news for the ANS probably. And was that something that Demano was trying to prevent? I think probably. I think that's part of the reason he took all those shorts out. But again, shorting in stock round 2 is pretty risky. So I think the shorts are going to come back to bite him. He's already in cash crisis, in fact. Yeah. So he's going to have to sell some shares here. And that is just bad news for him. PLE hasn't run yet, so he sells that share without able to get any cash at all for it. And that's the danger of these shorts. I do like the B&A play, though, as mentioned. So H taking a loan, going to pick up a 3 and going to be paying for a lot more even in the next stock round. Demana is in a little bit of trouble for that. Ujang, He is looking to get into Baltimore. No guarantee that anybody helps him out with that. And again, as a result of these coal tracks, this company is on life support. Running 2 trains. Oh, I see. Sorry. He was able to get the upgrade himself. So not really on life support. Doing okay. Running for 130 and has some loans that he has to pay for. A&A in Charleston. Is he looking to cooperate with Cincinnati? Looks like it. Running 2 trains, pay in half, and not going to be able to pay off a loan. PLE could upgrade Baltimore and token there. He would have 2 companies with 2 of the same token slots. So if he loses those tokens, need to be a little bit careful that he's able to start a new company. But it's going to be impossible to defend both because he'll lose 2 tokens in one action. And of course, you can only float 1 company at a time. So needs to be a little bit careful. Does he take the token? He does. All right. So kind of a very incestual relationship between Baltimore and Philadelphia right now. Running his 2 trains and half paying to cover his interest. Will be able to pay off a loan, but actually taking more loans to afford a 3 train. Okay. Does have good routes, so it makes sense. Best Pittsburgh company probably wants to get at least 1 more train into this company as soon as possible. Does have a token, could drop it on Charleston just to mess with Jeremy a little bit. Looks like he's going to be laying track towards Atlanta, so I think he does want that token in Charleston. He does, and running his 2 trains needs a 3 train in this company. But maybe doesn't buy it here. Actually, he could merge the B&A and Bess, like we mentioned. Maybe that's his strategy. He would lose out on a token in Pittsburgh, which he just worked so hard to get by doing that. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that if that's worthwhile. So he does buy the 3, so I don't think we'll be seeing them merge. He's just going to be running a ton of trains out of Pittsburgh. B&A only has 1 train right now. He's going to have to buy a train against operating order if he wants to run more. A&S still in a rough spot. He actually pays to upgrade New York and is not going to have the money to buy a 3 train, so just running a single 2 train for now. Belt, really kind of limited options, may just be upgrading Albany for a few extra bucks here. And he's paying that out. WC in Cincinnati could start to head over to Chicago, otherwise kind of limited track. Looks like that's what he's thinking. Does pay train cost for it, and not going to have enough for his interest as a result, so he's going to have to half pay. I don't know if that extra track lay is worth it. Half paying, and we are into the merger and acquisitions. In terms of trains, we have 3 trains left. I don't think we'll be seeing 4s. They may get to export a 4, but I think that's the only way we're going to be seeing one. Nobody has enough cash really to buy those more expensive trains and push through the 3s. In terms of acquisitions and mergers, we are looking at these 2 companies merging, but I think that's unlikely actually. He may just want to take all these shares and run some trains out of Pittsburgh without merging. In terms of Ujang, he has the UR and the A&A. UR, I believe, is the Richmond company. Has secured itself a little bit of a run, but has been tokened out of a lot of revenue centers. So nothing too exciting going on there. And then A&A is the Charleston company, I believe. Yep. So if he were to merge these 2 companies, he would be operating early, and he could run 4 trains with just 1 company. Charleston is going to potentially have 4 routes. So maybe that's what he's looking at. Maybe we should be looking at a merge between UR and A&A. Jeremy, GT, and WC, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. Don't think that there's much for him there. Doesn't want to merge. It can't merge these companies, and I don't think he really is incentivized to grow up either one of them. Demana, a ton of companies. A&S and Belt, both in New York. B&A and A&S and Belt in New York. Bess and B&A in Pittsburgh. I don't know that he wants to merge any of these companies. Could grow one of them up for a little bit more cash if he wants to pick up another 3-train. Housatonic and PLE, again, don't think we'll be seeing these merge, and don't know that he wants to grow them up to 10 shares. So it might be a little bit of a quick merger and acquisition. think the only company that I would be looking at potentially is the UR, getting rid of that, but we are actually already into the operating round. So GT's up first and does have 4 runs if he wants to link up in Chicago right now. He does. He's going to be running for 390. Is he able to take advantage of the 3 train? Doesn't? Yes, he is. Okay. So good for him. Running for 390, does have a ton of loans, and he's able to pay off 2 of them, it looks like. So that's good. Hurting Damana quite a bit, very high revenue, and the stock value has increased a whole lot. But again, securing that Pittsburgh token might be worth it. I don't know about the other shorts, but this one I was a fan of. B&A, looking to create his own access to Chicago, running his 3 train, and he's going to have to pay off a loan. Actually taking more loans, so looking for another 3 train. And pays his interest. H, running 3 trains out of Baltimore, and in terms of his track, could get a second run into New York potentially, double tap New York. Maybe that's what we'll see. Looks like it. So double tapping New York and then running from Philadelphia into Pittsburgh probably. Very efficient runs. Running for 340, and he has loans that he needs to cover. Bad news for Damana again. Quite high revenue on both of these companies. So definitely paying a price for these shorts, although the H only half paying here makes that a little bit more palatable. If he had full paid here, does Damana have enough cash, or would he be in cash crisis? He would have enough cash, but that does hurt. Paying off his loans and shooting up in stock value. UR, Wujang, not a whole lot of track, may just upgrade Richmond for the extra revenue, and does. He's half paying to cover loan interest. A&A out of Charleston, expect we'll be seeing him lane to Atlanta for a second run. And actually, just looking to bypass Cincinnati perhaps, I think the A&A, maybe it was the best that I thought it was going to be laying into Atlanta for an extra run, potentially. Although he already has routes for all of his trains. Yeah. All right. So the A&A could have laid here and taken advantage of coal rather than just running to Cincinnati. A little bit surprised we don't see that. Runs for 190, has interest to cover, and looks like he pays off a loan. Nice. Bess, 3 trains, links into Atlanta. Bad news for the A&A, not able to take advantage of that. And Bess is going to have very nice revenue of 380, but it has a bunch of loans, so probably has to half pay here. And actually isn't able to pay off any of the loans. Bad news for him. A&S, just a single 2 train. This company has been kind of in a rough spot from the start as a result of the cooperation of Baltimore and Philadelphia. He is looking to potentially bypass Philadelphia, get access to Baltimore later in the game, and running for just 90. Has to half pay to cover his interest. Belt, the other New York company, getting up into Montreal and half paying for, actually just full paying, sorry. PLE, it's the Philadelphia company, 3 trains, going to have a nice revenue. Gets 2 runs into Baltimore now. Not able to take advantage of it with just 3 trains yet. Half paying, and he'll probably be paying off some loans here. He's actually taking a loan and buying a second 3 train. How many 3 trains are left? 3. So I don't think we'll be seeing the 4 train export actually. Pretty slow start to the game. WC out of Cincinnati. Does have a link up with Chicago at least. And not sure where he's going with that track. Maybe just trying to prevent another player from getting to Chicago, but that track doesn't really accomplish that. Half paying, and he pays off a loan. So we're into the second mergers and acquisition loan phase of this round. Ujang, AA, and UR. I think he's got to do something with one of these companies, grow it up or merge them. Otherwise, he's going to be starting to fall behind potentially. He has a ton of cash, so he'll be floating another company, but and he has his choice of companies. So if he were to grow these companies up, he could potentially snag a token, but he's not going to be opening up any valuable tokens by merging the companies. Jeremy, GT and WC. GT in Cleveland, WC in Cincy. May want to grow up the WC, can't merge. Damana, he has Pittsburgh and New York on lock in terms of tokens. May want to merge some of his companies just to reduce the number of trains he needs to worry about. Merging New York, not going to be ideal, obviously, as when it joins up, he's going to lose one of these tokens, but could run multiple trains out of New York while they're separate at least. And Ken Kuhn, PLE and H, don't think he wants to merge these companies and needs to be a little bit careful about growing them up. Particularly the PLE is going to be operating late, opening himself up to more shorts when he already has a ton of loans in the company. GT, passing. A lot of people passing so far. So boring acquisition round, and I don't know that we'll be seeing any friendly sales. We're into the stock round. Everybody has enough cash to float a new company. Ken Kuhn, kind of a little bit poorer than the rest of them. Damana, of course, with several shorts that he's going to potentially have to cover, probably wants to cover. And Ujang also with some shorts that he may want to cover. 2-3 trains. The 6 train is a ways away. I don't know that you want to sit on these shorts. They're going to be kind of expensive to maintain. Could pay off these shorts and still float a company. They're pretty cheap to redeem. So he's selling out of the best, and he's going to be just snagging a more expensive par, it looks like. Instead, covering his shorts. Why is he selling out of the best first? He didn't need that cash just yet. Is that a short target? I don't think it is. Okay. So he's just getting cash, and then Jeremy's actually the first one to par a company. So a little bit of a missed opportunity from Ujang. He's going to not have his choice of tokens. Everybody else is going to be able to float ahead of him now. And he is taking Albany. Jeremy doesn't have any companies in New York to synergize with this, but maybe just hoping to get some runs into New York. He pars that for Max. Damana, he is starting to cover his shorts. And actually, Ken is now shorting the GT. GT with 3-2 trains. I guess probably enough companies will float ahead of him that those 3-2 trains will rust. But with the 3 train, it's not going to be falling back. He doesn't have a ton of loans. Ken Kuhn, he was the player with not enough cash to float. So maybe he's just going to short once to float a new company. Looks like he's floating the R. He takes Albany, so 2 tokens on Albany now. He makes that a 5-share company. And we're back to Ujang, who has missed out on the Albany tokens as a result of doing nothing his first opportunity. He is now floating, and he takes another token in Richmond. Richmond, really not a very attractive area of the map right now, or usually in general. Granted, I mean, there's not a whole lot of high-value tokens, maybe Scranton, Boston. So I guess if you got to start a company, you got to start it somewhere, but still. GT looking to clear its market potentially. And he succeeds in doing that. Damana now capitalizing the company. Sorry, he's closing his shorts now that GT has taken these loans. So getting a little bit of a break on his short. And Ken is continuing to short the GT. I don't think that the GT is a huge short target here. Not going to be able to take more loans, but still has cash to clear its market. And it has a 3 train. So it's going to be having a decent run from Cleveland into Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, I think. Right here. Yeah, I don't know. He does need cash. He was behind the rest of the players in terms of cash, but he's accumulating rather expensive shorts. Buying his R. Jeremy. He's redeeming shares with the GT. Damana. He buying the PLE. PLE in Philadelphia, going to be pretty good. And PLE is now covering his market. Ujeng out of cash. He is shorting the Bess. Bess with a 2+ train. Going to have pretty good revenue, but does have a bunch of loans. I don't know about these shorts. I mean, you're shorting a $70 company. You're not getting a ton of cash to begin with. Yeah, and they're going to have good revenue. Buying the PLE. PLE with 2-3 trains is an attractive company. But again, I don't know that the difference in price between these two companies warrants taking shorts to buy those shares. Jeremy, he's selling the H and buying an NYOW. NYOW, newly floated company in Albany, of course. Damana, buying the H that was just sold. Ken is passing Ujang. He is selling the H, so going to be falling back if it's not cleared the market, and buying the PLE. Damana, he buys his B&A, running 2 trains out of Pittsburgh, going to be pretty good. Ken Kuhn, clearing the market of the H again. Ujang, buying the B&A. And Bess is now trying to clear its market. Going to be a tall order, only going to be able to buy one of those market shares. Oh, sorry. Did I miss something? Oh, they're not $100. I got confused because the loan value is $100, but you don't need $100 to buy your market shares, obviously. So he's able to clear that with a single loan. Ken is passing, Ujang passing, Jeremy passing, Damana also passing. So this will leave Ken Kuhn with priority, and we are into the newly floated companies in Albany. NYOW, passing track, going to be buying some 3 trains here. Buys 2 of them, so we'll be seeing early 4 train, it looks like. R, he has loan space available, can pick up a 4. Actually, doesn't need a loan to pick up a 4, can just buy it. So all these 2 trains are going to be rusting. Buying some trains across just to shuffle cash into his other companies before the trains rush. A little bit of extra efficiency, benefit of floating early. And the 2 trains are now on the chopping block. DL&W, third new company. He is heading over to Blacksburg. Not going to be heading anywhere through there because of the coal. So not entirely clear why he's interested in going over there. Buys a 4 and taking some loans. Does he buy 2 4s? He does. Wow. So I think this company is going to be merged out because you're not going to be running too many trains out of this token. And Ujang, his other companies are ANA and UR. Both of these companies have trains that are going to be rusting. So he may just be actually going to buy these 4 trains out of the DLW and then allow the DLW to liquidate in the next operating round. Not a valuable token that he's interested in preserving, probably. H, train going to be rusting, but has good revenue for now. So double tapping New York and getting into Pittsburgh as well. 260 has some loans he's going to have to account for. He half pays and buys a 4. Not going to be paying off loans, it looks like. GT single train now. Looking to get into Chicago. Already has access to Chicago, but potentially building 2 routes to it. Running his 3 train for 140. And he full pays. So bad news for Ken Kuhn, I think, who shorted this company. And he's going to buy a train across from the NYOW, so he's going to have very high revenue, which will be painful for Ken. He's also going to be paying off loans here. ANA, train's going to be rusting. He is looking to bypass Cincinnati. Not sure where he's going to be heading after that, though. Already tokened out at Cleveland. Running for 110. And he buys a 4. He's buying it out of the DL&W, though. So this is exactly what we're talking about. DL&W bought those 2 4 trains, and now UR and AA are going to be buying them, and DL&W will be left to liquidate. UR, he is laying the Blacksburg track again. Again, not really clear the significance of these track lays. Running his train for 90, and he pays that out. We'll have enough to cover his loans and then buy a train out of the A&A. Actually, he's buying it out of the A&A, not the DLNW. So is he liquidating the A&A then? This will leave him with 2 tokens in Richmond. Not very good map presence for this player. We'll have to see how that ends up. Unless he's going to be merging instead of liquidating. Not going to be able to merge the DLNW with either of these companies, though. Could merge the UR and the A&A. Yeah, we'll see. B&A running 2-3 trains. Gets into Chicago. And running his 3 trains for 310, which he half pays to pay off some loans. Now loan free. Best Pittsburgh company running 2 trains. One of them are going to be rusting. 5 loans, so going to have pretty good revenue here. May have to full withhold even. Going to half withhold. Not going to be able to really pay off loans, it doesn't look like. Buys a train out of the B&A, and he's doing that because I guess he realizes this company has all the loans. Otherwise, the 2 companies are pretty equivalent. I guess that you have a short in this company, so want to hurt Ujing rather than pay him out. Otherwise, the companies are pretty equivalent. Fair enough. May also be able to double jump or get better stock appreciation by running trains in the cheaper company. So makes sense. Paying interest on his loans and pays off a single loan. Belt, trainless. He must have just had a single 2 train. Doesn't have the loan space for one of these expensive trains. Going to have to buy one out of his other companies or liquidate this company. I don't think you want to lose this token, so may have to defend it if he liquidates. He does liquidate, has no loans. Very attractive pickup for another player. WC, he is laying it to the northwest and buys a train out of the GT. ANS also trainless, falling back. So 2 of Damana's companies are falling back. He does have good tokens, but this is painful. And he liquidates both of his New York tokens. The Belt and the ANS are both liquidating. Interesting. It's a pretty high value tokens. We'll see if who wants to snag those. Does he have the capability to defend these? It's going to be hard with the best. Not a lot of cash, only 1 loan. B&A full loans, so could defend one of them probably. Other companies have pretty open loan slots as well, so he's definitely going to be losing one of these tokens. Probably to Jeremy. Jeremy, running out of Cleveland and in Cincinnati, has no access to New York right now, so he's incentivized to take one of those tokens. PLE, last company in the operating round, and he's running 2-3 trains, 310, does have loans, so he half pays and is going to pay off 2 loans, it looks like. Good for him. We're in the merger and acquisition round. We'll be seeing 2 companies liquidate. Are we going to be seeing any mergers? We might be seeing a merger out of Ujang just because he has a company that will otherwise be liquidating. And between the rest of these players, I don't know that Ken Kuhn is going to be merging. The R has a token in Albany, so could get a 10-share company with a tokens in Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Albany. That wouldn't be the end of the world. And then maybe he wants to compete for one of these New York tokens even, but the new 10-share company, that could be interesting. Ujang we talked about. Jeremy R. He has the Cleveland and Cincinnati companies, and I don't know where he's headed in this game. Maybe in a little bit of a rough spot. Damana, 2 of his companies are already liquidating. I don't think he wants to grow up the B&A and the BS or merge them, so he may be doing not too much other than trying to defend one of these New York tokens. See if anybody's merging or converting. A&A is merging with the UR. I think we predicted this. This was the company with no train. So A&A now has tokens on Richmond and Charleston. Going to be very hard to create a unified route for them, especially if Pittsburgh doesn't upgrade the way he wants um, with all this coal. Yeah, going to be hard to get any track worthwhile. And the B will upgrade, so he's really needs a token there. Otherwise, he's in pretty pretty deep trouble for late game runs. Ujang capitalizing this company. Does anybody else want to help him? Doesn't look like it. Anybody else merging or converting? WC is converting. This is the Cincinnati company. We'll have a little bit more loan space and an extra token. Other players are helping to capitalize the company. Only $50 a share, why not? And now AS is being liquidated. Had a loan, but otherwise um, basically just paying for a token here. Token in New York South. And, if you're the Baltimore player, you may be looking at that to be able to run through New York as opposed to just running and tapping it. I'm not sure which of these tokens would be more attractive. They're both up for bids, and both up for grabs. You may want to bid up the first one a little bit just to make the player that eventually gets it pay more for it and then hope to get a cheaper New York North. I think I'd be happy with either of those tokens. Ken Kuhn is passing on the ANS. Ken Kuhn is the Baltimore player. I think it's worth bidding at least a little bit. So he's passing for now. Ujang, exactly. So why not bid $10? You're probably not going to get it for $10, but at least you stay in the auction and see what the other players do. Jeremy going up to 60. Obviously, tokens worth probably a little bit more than that. Damana going up to 70. We'll see if the other players want to press him for this. Ujang is now passing out. Jeremy goes up to 80. Jeremy is, which player is he? He is the Cleveland and Cincinnati player. So not going to have easy ways to run trains through New York, even with this token, especially with just single 3 trains. But could come in handy for the late game. I don't think he wants to go too heavy against Damana for this. Probably just wants Damana to have to buy his own token rather than give him the cash into the stock round, or into the into the stock round down the road. Damana going up to 90, Jeremy going 100, and Damana wins his own token. So that's good for the other players, not giving Damana, who I think is probably in the lead, any extra cash. He's actually not in the lead. Okay. So he has good map presence, but his net worth is lagging a little bit. Jeremy's actually in the lead for right now, but he's the Cleveland Cincinnati player. I think his long-term potential is limited based on how tokens have developed so far. So the second New York token will be up for grabs now. And similar mental calculus for this. You've forced Damana to pay a reasonable amount for that token. Probably could have bid him up a little bit more, but you always run the risk of just giving him a bunch of cash. So we'll see if someone else is able to steal this company from him. Ken Kuhn passing right off the bat again. Ujang bidding 10, so very similar to the last start. We'll see if Jeremy wants to contest this again. He does. Damana is going up to 70, Ujang passing out. So interesting, almost identical auction so far. But I do think Jeremy wants at least one of these tokens. We'll see how much he's willing to pay for it. Damana gets it for 90, so was able to control both of those tokens still. So now he has tokens in Pittsburgh and tokens in New York. Pretty good for the late game. And B&A has to discard a token from E22. E22, let's just turn on these coordinates, is actually New York. So he bought the token and then discards it. That's pretty wild. All right. He didn't have to do that. Did he get both of these tokens into the B&A? Did B&A acquire both those companies? It did. He had other options, didn't he? Let's go back for a second. So he could have put it into the BES. Surprised that he gives up the token. You just paid all this money for it. All right. Who has priority? Ken Kuhn. So he may be able to start a company in New York right away and just snag that token. All right. See if anybody else wants to do any friendly sales. Probably not. And we're into the next operating round. NYOW. Um, Actually, since we're not going into the stock round, NYOW can snag that token. So Jeremy was fighting Damana for those tokens, but he's able to get it anyways and didn't have to pay anything for the privilege. Well played to him. I imagine we'll see him tokening there. Heading toward Boston and snags the token in New York. So well played to Jeremy there, I think. Running his 3 train for 140. No loans. Could take some loans to pick up 4 if he wants. And it's going to pass. A&A. Linking up to Blacksburg. So this whole triangle down here, I don't know what this is about. This is kind of expensive track. I guess he's getting money for laying it technically, but really just low yield. Running a 4 train for 180, pays that out, paying his interest and paying off loans. R, as a result of Ken Q's lane into Boston, will have availability to run through there into Maritime if he wants. Looks like he will bite the bullet and lay the track and has a better run for himself as a result. 170, which he half pays to cover the loans. GT, single 3 train. He is bypassing Detroit, it looks like. Not sure where he's going. Just laying track to lay track. Running for 140 and paying interest. Not going to be able to pay off loans. H, 2 trains for him. Will have very high revenue, I think. Looking to bypass New York and get into New York North down the road. Running for 340. He does have 2 loans. And he full pays just to cover his interest. DLW, one of these kind of dead-end companies. He's running for 160. Has a full retinue of loans. Has to half pay just to cover interest, really. And then is going to pay off a loan, it looks like. B&A single 3 train. Bad news for Damana. He's not able to run as many trains out of Pittsburgh or into this New York token he's secured as I would have hoped. Not really sure what the players are doing up here in the north. Just some kind of random track going on up there. Half paying to cover his interest. Best 2-3 trains. Does have some coal that he's hitting, so pretty good revenue from that at least. Running for 330. Looks like he's full paying just to hurt his Parasite Ujang, and will be probably paying off some loans here as well. PLE running 2-3 trains. He is getting into Albany, it looks like, and running for 310, which he half pays. Will be able to pay off a loan, it looks like. Actually, no, probably will not be able to with the interest. WC single 3 train and gets into Detroit and actually lays a token there. Very unexciting tokens on the west side of the map so far. Half paying, and he'll pay off a loan. So we're into the next mergers and acquisitions. Just looking at the game state. Ken Kuhn, he has Baltimore and Philadelphia into Albany. Ujang has Charleston and Richmond. Jeremy in Cleveland and Cincinnati, and Damana in New York and Pittsburgh primarily. In terms of mergers and acquisitions, we are 2 trains away from the first permanent train. People, specifically Ken Kuhn and Damana, have enough cash to float, but Ken Kuhn has some shorts that he's going to be wanting to cover, pretty expensive shorts, so he has a lot less cash than we imagine. And then in terms of the other players, they're going to have to find cash somewhere else probably. So there may be some short targets here. Ujang's A&A, potentially a short target, quite a nice stock value. He may need to look to defend this by merging this company down with DLNW to decrease the price at least. And then that becomes a much less attractive short target, I think, with 2 4 trains. Of course, his routes are just not really that impressive. He's running trains, I guess running 2 4 trains out of Charleston potentially is an option. Still, yeah, pretty anemic runs for him. He's in trouble. Maybe a short target, Ujang, both of these companies, if he doesn't merge them. Jeremy, he has some short activity already on the GT, and he only has 3 trains, so he may be looking to grow up companies for loan space, although he has pretty open loan space already, actually. And then Damana, I don't think you want to merge these 2 companies, but you may want to grow one of them up for a little bit extra loan space and cash. We'll see. ANA and DLW, they are passing. NYOW merging with the GT. So let's look at that. NYOW here up in Albany, GT over here. So he's assembling some good late game runs from the east to the west of the map. Is going to have to link up through this corridor of, no mountain territory basically, but very feasible for that to occur with this loss in track. And he doesn't lose any tokens by doing this, not giving himself any more loan space per se, but he is increasing the stock value of the GT shorts potentially. It's the same value actually. And nobody's buying any shares here, it looks like. So we'll see if anybody else wants to do any merges. The Rutland, this is in Albany. Could merge this with one of these other player tokens. They both have tokens in Baltimore and Philadelphia, so by merging the Rutland with one of these companies, you would at least be not losing those tokens right away. They see him do that. He's going to pass for now. DL&W, operating out of Richmond, doing nothing. Bess, probably doing nothing. B&A, so everybody passed. We're in the acquisition round, and we're into the stock round. Ken Kuhn probably needs to cover some shorts here. Could snag a token early and then cover shorts afterwards, but we'll have to short a different company to cover these shorts. So he's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen on another. We'll see what he decides. He's shorting the ANA, and then is he going to float something? He does. Floating the UR, and in terms of tokens, probably Boston or Detroit would be my guess. Boston for now. Ujang is selling the PLE and going to be selling a bunch of different shares in order to float as well. So let's see what they're taking. He's actually shorting the B&A after selling it. B&A has a 3-train, has good map position, half loan space available. I think there's probably better short targets. NYSW, is he taking Detroit or Boston? Boston, so both Boston tokens are taken. Jeremy, not a lot of cash, but no shorts that he has to cover at least. So he is shorting the A&A. I think that's fine. A&A kind of operating out of Charleston, but with a single train, probably reasonable to short it for such a high value. I imagine Ujang's going to be taking some loans here to prevent them from max shorting his company. A&S, probably Detroit, I would guess, does. And Damana is also going to get in on the short party in the ANA. Only a 5-share company, so not the end of the world, but going to be very hard for it to redeem these market shares. Belt is now floating, kind of random tokens available. Maybe look at Scranton, for instance. He does. And Ken Kuhn is going to get one more short on Ujang. So the fact that Ujang didn't take any loans when he had the opportunity means that most of the players are able to get full value out of their shorts on this company. At this point, maybe not even that worth taking the loans. Yeah, you probably still do, actually. GT second. Actually, I think Ken didn't float a company the first time. Looks like he did, the UR. So second company he's floating, and he floats that on Buffalo. Ujang, he's buying the NYSW, his company that he floated. Is he going to take any loans to trying to redeem some shares from the ANA? No. So players are able to get full value from the ANA. Okay. Jeremy buying the ANS, his company he just floated. And Jay is now floating. putting a token on Toledo. So we've got like 5 or 6 newly floated companies now. Yeah, it looks like 6 so far. Going to be a train rush to end all train rushes. PLE redeemed some shares. And Ken Kuhn still has these exposed shorts. In terms of the 6 trains coming out, very feasible that they will. Um, the 5 trains are $600. A lot of these players are going to be able to afford those with these newly floated companies, and the 4 trains are going to go pretty quickly too. So maybe he's safe. If these 3 trains rust, of course, then he's in good position. NYSW, he's taking some loans, just trying to operate behind these newly floated companies, I imagine, so that he doesn't have to buy a 4 train, can pick up a 5. We'll see if the other players cotton onto this and want to change operating order as well. Jeremy buying the PLE. Similar situation as the NYOW, though, operating even later in operating order, so no guarantee we see those 3 trains running. H is taking a loan and probably just wanting to clear his market. Has to take 2 loans to do it and succeeds. And everybody just passes. So we're into operating round 4, starting to inch towards permanent trains here. I think we'll see that very early in this operating round. UR, newly floated company in Boston. He is passing track, taking loans and buys a 4. ANS also has money for a 4 train. He is heading up to Toronto, buying a 3 train out of the NYOW. So recognizing that the NYOW is at a lot of danger of both of its 3 trains rusting. But now the ANS is going to be probably falling back trainless, potentially liquidating in the next operating round. Belt, going to have to take some loans here. And doesn't have a run for itself just yet. Buys the last 4, so we'll see the 5s come out. And we have 4 companies operating ahead of the NYOW. So it looks like probably the NYOW will be able to run its single 3 train now. Not going to be falling back trainless. Good news for him. Bad news for whoever has the short in that company, which is Ken. GT laying track into Toronto and going to have to take some loans here to buy a 5. First 5 brown trains are available. We'll see who gets this Pittsburgh token. That's one thing I didn't pay attention to. Let's see who's going to be operating first. Could be the NYOW. So things are looking up for Jeremy. NYOW does have a token available. So good news for him. Jay in Toledo gets a token in Detroit probably. Yep. And he will be picking up a 5-2. R does have loan room available for a 5 if he wants it. Actually, with 5 loans, I think he would have to, well, I don't know what his revenue is going to be. We'll see. Upgrades New York, could token there, and does. Running his 4 train for 160. So he full withholds and now will be able to afford a 5 train with max loans. And actually, he is not buying the 5 train. He's just shuffling cash into the H. Okay. Last new company here. He already has cash for the 5 if he wants it. Upgrading Boston. Buys a 5. 2 5 trains available. So the NYOW, we were a little bit worried about its prospects, but it looks like he's going to be A-OK. We'll run this train and then pick up a permanent train. Just coast to the late game. Probably upgrading Albany here. Actually going to be upgrading Pitts. Oh, yeah, we predicted this. So he gets the token on Pittsburgh. Good news for him. Running his 3 train. Last run of that train probably. Pays it out, buys a 5. Even able to pay off a loan. Nice. A&A. This company was pretty heavily shorted, obviously, and did not have a token available for that Boston track, so pretty unfortunate for him. Going to open this up for another player. Runs his 4, now has access to New York at least, temporarily. Damana in cash crisis. Was he very heavily shorting in the last stock round? I don't remember. Not really. The only company he shorted was this. Ken Kuhn was a lot more shorts than he does. But he's in cash crisis, will be forced to sell shares, it looks like. And Ken Kuhn, as noted, he's shorted a lot more. He's also in cash crisis. Bad news for him. Selling the WC. And who's going to be buying this 6 train? Is there any 5s left? There's 1 5 left. So the 6 train might be exporting, actually. DLNW. He gets the token on Baltimore, so at least one of Ujang's companies is able to take advantage of that. Better runs for him in the future now. Running his 4 train, also with access to New York. Half paying to cover loans. H looks like he will be picking up the 5 here, so probably we will see a 6 export. And he's running for 250. Pays that out. Does have to worry about this interest a little bit, but probably worth picking up the 5. And just going to be paying off some loans, it looks like. So maybe the 6 doesn't export. Best running 2 3 trains. Upgrading Charleston, running for 390, which he full pays. Bad news for Ujang. And he's able to pay off a loan as well. PLE, surprised that these 3 trains survived. I was expecting them to rust, but both the NYOW and the PLE are able to run their 3 trains. And he is not laying track with any consequence, really. Getting a run into Raleigh, bypassing Richmond. I don't know if anybody's going to be taking advantage of that, really. 390. He half pays and is able to pay off some loans. B&A, single 3 train. He is looking to bypass Cleveland, it looks like. Why would he lay that? He has the token in Cleveland. Huh. That's interesting. Running a 3 train for 200. These 3 routes are getting pretty lucrative. And he half pays that. We'll be paying off a loan. WC, single 3 train. And he's running for 160. He has to half pay and is able to pay off his single loan. So we're in the mergers and acquisitions. There's going to be another rusting event coming up, so you may look to convert some of these companies or merge some of these companies with 3 trains to minimize the number of expensive permanent trains you're going to be on the hook for here, looking at Jeremy specifically with these 2 companies. And even Damana with the PLE may look to get rid of this company before these 3 trains rust so he doesn't fall back. Otherwise, going to be on the hook for quite a few trains. So the H is converting. This is the Baltimore company. And he's buying shares to capitalize this company for permanent trains, it looks like. Does anybody else want to help him? Doesn't look like it. UR now is merging with the R. So let's just look at these 2 companies. UR up here in Boston and the Rutland in Albany, New York. So he's developed a nice little run for himself up north. And he has 3 trains. Don't think he's going to be able to really run full 3 trains, but again, operating late enough in operating order that not necessarily going to be running those that 3 train. He's capitalizing it as well. And Belt is merging with the B&A. Belt, where's the Belt? I don't see it on the map just yet. It's up here in Baltimore, or Buffalo. So he's just consolidating companies. Going to be able to run a 4 train out of Pittsburgh in the B&A because that 3 train is probably going to be rusting. So the token's not the goal here. It's just to get the Pittsburgh company a train that's not on the chopping block. NYSW permanent train passing, A&A passing. D Bess is merging with J. I think this is another example of just getting a permanent train into the Pittsburgh location. J was up here in Toledo. Also has tokens in Detroit though, so could run from Atlanta up north here into Chicago using those tokens. Starting to see the late game runs kind of coalesce. So Damana doing a nice job of kind of consolidating all of his companies into the more valuable tokens with his permanent trains. DLNW, um, 2-4 trains in this player's companies, has a ton of shorts in the A&A. A&A at a Charleston has a little bit of limited track, has been cut off with tokens in Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, and all this coal preventing it from running east. This track, of course, not going to be upgrading, so cut off there as well. So even if he were to merge these companies, he really doesn't have good routes. He's in a little bit of trouble. PLE and GT are merging. PLE has been that Philadelphia company. He's getting a permanent train into his company as a result. And actually, Damana's selling out of the PLE. Interesting. With a 5 train, should have a pretty good run. Not going to be running these 3s, I don't imagine. We're into the last merger potentially. And now friendly sales. I don't know that anybody's looking to do this, so we'll move through this kind of quickly. Operating around 4.2. H, just a 4 train, does have plenty of loan space for permanent 6 train, and may want to do that before the other 3 trains can run. Ken Kuhn, he has 3 trains, but if he doesn't rust them, someone else will, so he may want to just do this to hurt the other players. He has the most 3 trains. He's tied with Damana for them. And Jeremy are. They all have 3 trains, so probably makes sense for him to fall on this and rust all these trains. He's getting a token in New York. Good news for him. Has very nice revenue centers. New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore. Can hit Pittsburgh even. And he's withholding. Surprised he withholds. He's got no investors, full treasury, could pay that out and then take loans. But I guess he's worried about potential shorts in the upcoming stock round, so doesn't want to inflate his stock value very much. Maybe that's what's going on here. Regardless, going to be ending up with a 6 train, it looks like, rusting everybody else's 3s. NYOW, he is upgrading Cincinnati. Already has a nice 5 train run through Cleveland and into Baltimore to Chicago probably. Running his 5 train, 290, half pays to get rid of these loans, and we'll be entering the stock round with a fairly high stock price, but a permanent train and full loan space. Kind of dangerous to short this company. ANS is trainless. I think we were worried about trainless companies last operating round. We're finally starting to see that. And Jeremy may just want to liquidate this company. I don't know if it's worth buying a permanent train for it. You lose out on the Detroit token potentially, but yeah, probably just liquidating. Which he does. NYSW, tokened out at Albany, so not the best run. And just going to be running his 5 train as a 3 train for 150, half paying to cover his loan. A&A, he is getting into Philadelphia with this track potentially, but again, limited options for him. He has a bunch of shorts and not a very healthy treasury, so not going to be hurting those shorts all that much. Running for 210, pays it out, and is able to pay off a loan, it looks like. Actually, doesn't even pay off a loan. Has the cash to do it and just going to sit on it. All right. DLNW, he is, I guess that was the purpose of this upgrade, is so he could upgrade F-17 and then potentially start working into this track here. But he's got a long route to get around these coal mines and all these tokens. Lost out on the track development early in the game. Running for 250, And he half pays to start paying off loans and is able to pay off one. UR 2-4 trains. Um, doesn't have 2-4 train routes, uh, but if he upgrades D21, we'll be able to run a 4 as a 3 at least. And with double tapping New York, we'll have decent revenue. So it looks like he sees that. And he has pretty good revenue at 400. He full pays that, but with the treasury, he's going to be able to pay off loans anyways, so good position for him. Bess, single 5 train, has a decent run. Would have to upgrade E18 or E8 to really take full advantage of his run from Atlanta into Chicago, but should be able to do that. And running for 300, he has some loans that he needs to be wary of, so maybe half paying. He full pays. I guess with the treasury, he can afford to do that. And should pay off 2 loans here. Bad news for Ujang. Belt running a 4 train. And he's just laying track around New York. Running for 240, half paying, and paying off some loans. PLE, 5 train in this company. He is upgrading Blacksburg. I'm really not sure what's been going on down here this whole game. I guess if you're running into Durham by bypassing Richmond, then that makes sense to upgrade Blacksburg. I don't know. This southeast corner has just been kind of a wasteland, it feels like. He actually is tokening Blacksburg. Doesn't seem like a very valuable token. Running for 270, half paying that, and he'll pay off a loan. WC, last company, may just want to liquidate this company as well. Only a token on Cincinnati and Detroit. What other companies does Jeremy have? The NYOW. So he liquidated the ANS already, and I think he has to liquidate the WC as well. Could potentially buy one of these tokens into NYOW, but doesn't want the Cincinnati token, I don't think. Maybe worth it for the Detroit, is it? Probably not. Well, yeah, hard to say. I don't know. I don't think he wants these tokens. Could just liquidate and let other people snap them up, pay him. Linking up with Buffalo, and he does liquidate. Okay. So 2 companies liquidating, both from the same player in terms of mergers and growing up to 10 shares companies. Probably Ujang wants to do that. He has 2 companies without um, permanent trains and just 4 trains. So he's going to need to grow them up for loan space at least. And may want to grow them both up, actually. He's got a ton of shorts already in the ANA and needs to be a little bit careful, I guess, that he doesn't open himself up to further shorting by growing that up. If he were to merge them, he would probably reduce the stock value a little bit, which should maybe incentivize the other players to close their shorts. Jeremy, 2 companies liquidating. He doesn't have too many options in this round. Damana, he has 1 permanent train, full loan capability, not a excessively high stock value, probably safe in terms of short attacks, and can't merge his companies. Ken Kuhn, he has 2 permanent trains. Looks like he's the only player with a 6 in the game. Okay. And he has all these companies at 10 shares, so no acquisitions or mergers for him either, but could look to bid for some of these tokens that Jeremy is putting on the market. So probably not the most exciting merger and acquisition. Just be curious to see what happens with these tokens in the liquidation. WC being liquidated, this company has Cincinnati and Detroit, I want to say. Yep. So good value in these tokens. And I'm sure that Jeremy wants other players to buy them for him so that he has money going into the stock round. Otherwise, he's going to be in a little bit of trouble. He does have permanent train, but he's not going to be able to buy too many shares without people paying for these tokens. Damana bidding just 10, of course, worth more than that. Ken Kuhn is passing. Ujang bidding 30. Jeremy going up to 40. He wants to hold on to this token, but I don't know that he can really afford to do it. Damana's passing. Ujang. I think Ujang and Ujang and who owns this? Jeremy? I think Ujang and Jeremy are falling behind in this game. I don't know that either one of them really wants to give money up for these tokens. I think Ken and Damana are kind of the two players contending for it. Damana has very good track position or map position, but so does Ken, and Ken has more permanent trains. So could go either way there. Ken's net worth is probably a little bit inflated right now just because of these shorts. Um, he's going to have to cover those. And Damana's already actually leading, so probably truly the leader of the game is Damana right now. These two players are fighting for tokens, but might be a kind of crabs in the bucket situation where they're just going to fall further and further behind. Ujang going up to 50, Jeremy 60. I imagine that Jeremy wants Ujang to pay him as much as he can. I don't think he wants to hold on to these tokens otherwise. Maybe that's why he's just bidding it up. But we'll see how greedy he gets. So Ujang ends up paying him 130, a little bit over the $50 base value for those tokens. But again, I don't know how much further Jeremy could have safely bid up Ujang. But good news for Jeremy regardless. ANS now being liquidated, and also had no loans. So let's see if Jeremy's able to get a price for this token as well. ANS was just on Detroit. So Ujang already having bought a token in Detroit, I don't know that he's motivated to buy another one. Maybe Jeremy will be just buying his own token here. Damana and Ken have no interest. Ujang bidding 10, Jeremy 20, and Jeremy wins it for 20. So I think in summary, Jeremy is able to take a little cash over Ujang off of this, and then just maintains one of his tokens in Detroit. I don't imagine we'll be seeing any friendly sales here. We'll move through this quickly. And actually, A&A is being offered up. I think this is just a Hail Mary, though. I don't think anybody wants this company, actually. Yeah, I think Ujang is just pulling levers to pull levers at this point. And so actually, he acquires his own company and puts some pressure on Jeremy. But these are the two players that are just kind of hurting each other, buying each other's tokens and whatnot. So not really the end of the world. And in terms of who acquired it, looks like NYSW acquired it. So he's just forcing the players to close their shorts early, basically. But the other two players have cash to do it. So not really the end of the world. Actually, Ken didn't have cash. Okay. So just forcing them to close their shorts before they were ready to, but really not the end of the world. Ujang has a ton of cash, and he will be floating some new companies. He is selling the UR, probably expecting those trains to rust shortly. And now shorting the belt. Damana, he has a permanent train already, tons of loan space, and the odds of this 4 train rusting before it runs are quite low. So I think these shorts probably not going to pay off for Ujang. And also, he doesn't really need the cash right now to do anything. So I don't know that I think these are great shorts. He floats the SR. Could just be looking at that token on Boston. Takes it on Rochester. Okay, middle of nowhere. Jeremy's passing. Does he have no cash? Yeah, he's kind of out of the game at this point, probably. Damana's buying the H. Has a permanent train, good map position, reasonable to invest in it. Ken Kuhn is shorting the NYOW, shorting a company with a permanent train. Seems questionable. Jeremy has no loan interest, no other companies. So these shorts are definitely going to cost Ken down the road, but I guess he feels that he can put the money to better use for now. But Jeremy is going to be paying out on this company, doesn't need to take loans or have any danger of not being able to afford his for instance. So these shorts will not pay off long term, but maybe in the short term he needs the cash. Buying the UR, interesting. So buying his own company and buying it from the market to clear the market, but not going to be able to capitalize this company with that money. Other players are also shorting the NYOW. It is a ton of cash, but as previously discussed, has no chance that it's not going to be paying out. What's the interest right now? Interest is only 25. Okay. So Belt is recovering some shares, it looks like. Or is he just defending? I guess Belt is just worried that the other players are going to be shorting it. Is able to recover some shares. No. Still just taking loans. NYOW still being shorted. Ken Kuhn buying the H. Does have a permanent train. Pretty good routes, as noted. Demana shorting the NYOW still. And buying the H. So these two players are just transferring money from the NYOW to the H, basically. And H is now sold out. And the NYOW is max shorted. He's not able to redeem these market shares without taking loans. He could have taken loans to avoid this. Not really sure why he didn't defend a little bit more. I imagine before the stock round ends, he will be taking some loans to redeem these. But he could have done that before everybody got their full value. Maybe Jeremy's just kind of passing through the game at this point, not interested in participating. PLE taking a loan and does have shares in the market, maybe looking to recover those. Gonna have to take several loans to do it though. PLE now maybe floating up if people continue to invest in it. Looks like they're interested. Does have a permanent train and good map position, so reasonable. Demana selling out of the belt. Interesting. No permanent train in this company, but good map presence. Belt is in Pittsburgh, Cleveland. I guess that's, oh no, he also has New York, but we'll have to kind of link up through this corridor here to take advantage of it. But yeah, pretty good runs for him. His other companies, interesting that he's selling out. So I guess he just doesn't feel comfortable shorting other companies and wants to get this cash in paying companies, and that's why he's selling, anticipating that he'll have to do some withholding and take some loans on this company potentially. He's floating a new company, A&S, so we're going to be pushing trains. He puts that up Boston. Other players are passing. NYOW now taking loans. Could have done this much earlier. A little bit confused by that. So going to be redeeming a ton of his market shares. Going to hurt his shorts a little bit with this. Once he redeems all these shares at least. And with this, may be able to actually afford a second permanent train after the second operating round on the set. We'll see if he's able to. Does he have the routes for 2 permanent trains? Potentially, yes. Really depends if he's able to link up New York up north here. Belt now taking loans. And actually not redeeming any shares just yet, but may want to do that down the road. Or maybe he's just preparing for out-of-pocketing, or not out-of-pocketing, but buying a expensive permanent train. That's why he's sold, so he could take these loans and not hurt his net worth as much. He's selling out of the H now. He's putting some shares into the market and buying the A&S, his newly floated company. H is redeeming those sold shares, has a very healthy treasury, so no problem there. And he's continuing to capitalize the A&S. So looking to push trains and then probably buy this train into another company and then close or liquidate the ANS. Selling 2 shares to continue to capitalize the ANS. H is again redeeming a share. And Damana has 1 more share he can buy if he wants. But it looks like all these companies are just clearing their markets. And we're into the operating round. UR is first up, 2-4 trains. Lucky for him, he's able to run these 1 more time. I don't think he's going to be given another opportunity. In terms of trains, well, maybe. 2-6 trains left, but I imagine we're going to see all these 7s bought and then the 8 export. So probably this will be the last run of these 4s and everybody's 4s. Upgrading Scranton does have a token if he wants it. Drops it there. And running for 400. Healthy treasury can pay off a loan, which he does. Bess, single train out of Pittsburgh. And looks like he's heading up to Scranton, but unfortunately, this corridor has been kind of shut down now that the GT and UR both tokened in Scranton. Running for 310, and he's going to pay off a loan as well. SR, newly floated company, buying a 6 here. Could pick up 2 6s potentially with some loans. $1,500 would be pretty expensive to do it, but maybe you want to pick up these cheaper permanent trains. Ujeng was one of the players we identified as being in a little bit of trouble in this game, so some cheap permanent trains might go a long way for him. Laying tracking to Toronto, but tokened out to Detroit, so nothing going for him. Buys the single 6, 1 more left, and he's taken the loan, so he will be buying 2 6s here. Okay, aggressive, but maybe what he needs to stay relevant. ANS, going to be picking up the final 6, I think. And actually the first 7. Okay. Damana looking to get access into New York and has to take loans to buy the 7. So are there 2 more companies that will be buying 7 trains to export the 8? There will have to be some train shuffling to occur for that to occur, I think, because these 2 companies potentially could. Actually, sorry, these 2 companies cannot based on their current loan situation, so they may need to buy trains out of their fellow companies to shuffle money around. So maybe the 8 doesn't export here, which would extend the game, unfortunately. Deal on a W, upgrading New York now that we're in gray. And still using as private. Interesting. Guess they don't really go away. So able to put that on Louisville. And running for 270, which he half pays to cover loans. And he'll pay a loan off. Does need to be a little bit worried about the DLW. That 8 train is not far away. H running 2 trains, has great routes. And upgrading Baltimore, sorry. Tokening in Blacksburg, so second player to token down there, getting exclusive access to Raleigh, running for 650, has a pretty healthy treasury, but unfortunately, I believe he's train locked, right? Isn't the train limit 2 right now? It is, so he's not going to be picking up the 7. Paying some interest and then pays off all of his loans, I imagine. PLE, he is upgrading Pittsburgh and running just his 5 train for a 320, and he'll be paying off loans as well. Actually is shuffling a train out of the UR. Not able to buy one of the later operating companies, but UR is going to be having cash now with the loans to pick up a permanent train for himself. NYSW running 2 trains and able to get into Chicago, it looks like, with this. Probably running from Raleigh down into Chicago. Actually, not so far. Half paying, paying off some loans. NYOW, single permanent train, but over full treasury, so going to be getting cash towards its interest and paying off some loans, hurting its shorts when it does. Running for 360 and should be paying off 4 loans, it looks like. But not going to be inching towards a permanent train as a result. Belt has some shorts here. Damana had sold out of this company, so is he going to look to just allow it to withhold for a permanent train and then try buy another train into this company and then liquidate it? We'll see what he wants to do here. He's running for 310. Actually, full pays. Does have a very full treasury, so not the end of the world there. And is going to pay off a loan, it looks like. All right. What's happening in this merger and acquisition round? So 310 share companies in Damana, 310 share companies in Cancun. I've been kind of predicting that one of these two players is going to take this game. Only a single company that's 10 share in Jeremy, nothing for him to do. And Ujeng has 2 5-share companies, so he's the only player with options in this round. And in terms of growing up versus converting, DLW, he has tokens kind of throughout the map, actually, pretty spread out. Going to be hard for him to link up a run using these tokens. Just token data, too many revenue centers. The NYSW, on the other hand, has Charleston. I don't think this token helps him. Neither of these tokens help him. So I don't know that merging these companies makes a whole lot of sense. It would be a way to reduce your train liability, but you have 6 trains just sitting in the SR. So maybe I'll just grow up both of these companies for extra loan space. That said, growing them up is going to potentially allow other players to invest in them. So maybe want to just sit on 5-share companies if you have the permanent trains already. Might be a very quick acquisition round. It looks like it was. So Belt now is going to be offered. The 2 trailing players can't afford it. It'll come down to Ken and Damana. And Damana, I think he wants these valuable tokens because he has tokens all over the map in Belt, and the AS only has a token in Boston. So probably going to be acquiring that company over to preserve these tokens. Ken could, it looks like, compete for this, and I think he could actually overbid Damana if he wanted. But this would be handing a ton of cash to Damana, and Ken, well, I guess he would want the tokens probably. That Pittsburgh token would be pretty useful. So we'll see if Ken wants to bid for this. Looks like he passes. Damana will be paying himself for the belt and forcing Ujeng's hand on these shorts as well, who is now in cash crisis and has to sell some shares. I don't think we'll be seeing any other friendly acquisitions here. So nice for Damana. He's able to hold on to those tokens and reduce his train liability. We're into the next operating round. In terms of trains, there is a single 7 left. So if anybody buys a train here, we will be entering the endgame phase as the 8 will export. H, 2 permanent trains. Ken lost out on the token on Pittsburgh. Could have secured that for himself if he'd wanted it. Probably would have given him a little bit better late game runs. But instead we'll be upgrading up north by New York, and he runs for 690. Very nice with no loans. He pays that out. He's able to double jump with that, and could pick up a second permanent train with some loans here. Actually, sorry, he's going to have to wait for that 4 train to rust, but later in the game could pick up a second permanent train. UR, no permanent trains for him, and he is upgrading Boston. running his 4 train for 280, 320, and he withholds that. We'll be picking up a 7. Okay, so the 8 train is going to be exporting or potentially being bought, and we will see the end game trigger at the end of this operating round. Best running a 5. He's running for 360, does have some loans, and with interest is not able to pay them off. DL and W in a little bit of danger here. Going to be seeing this 4 train rust very shortly. Running for 310 just to pay off a loan, it looks like. Actually taking loans. Don't think he can afford an 8. Definitely can't afford an 8. So just taking max loans here, maybe making it harder for this company to be acquired in the future. Could also be looking to shuffle trains, but we'll have to buy them against operating order. So yes, he's shuffling trains into the SR, so SR can potentially pick up an 8 for itself with some loans. But again, with only 2 loans available, I don't know how that's going to work out. NYSW, he is laying track to bypass Pittsburgh and running 2 trains for 510. He half pays and can pay off a loan, it looks like. NYW single permanent train. And last time he was able to pay off a bunch of his loans, probably will be doing so again. But these shorts may actually have paid out if they're able to cover them in the next stock round. Running for 360 and should be able to pay off 3 loans here. So going to end up at 270. I think he started at 245. So with the revenue and now being at a higher stock price, those shorts are going to be a net negative for these other players. Ken Kuhn, he is running 2 trains again, 630. He half pays and pays off 2 loans. ANS, 2 trains, has been acquired, so now has much better routes than it did prior. And I don't know if he's able to run the full length of the 7 train, but is going to have pretty good revenue regardless. So with that, looks like he is running pretty much the full length, and 730, very good revenue for him. Half the treasury is available to him, so he'll be able to just pay and pay off loans. 6 train in the SR, bad routes for him. He's able to get a little bit of a better route now. And this is the player that sold his 4 train against operating order, so just running a single train, but probably wouldn't be able to run 2 trains anyways, at least not for very much. Tokens in Buffalo, runs for 240, half pays to pay off loans. So we're back into the mergers and acquisitions. Final phase of the game. 2 more operating rounds left, or 3 more operating rounds left. In this merger and acquisition, everybody has permanent trains now, and the tokens have kind of been exhausted. In terms of merging, I don't know that Ujang has a whole lot to do. The SR tokens are underwhelming, and I don't think they would help his other companies. NYSW doesn't really need those tokens. The DL and W, I guess, could take advantage of this Buffalo token, so we may see that. The SR and the DL and W, actually the SR is already a 10-share company, so we definitely won't be seeing that. Jeremy, nothing to do here, and the other players, nothing to do here now that they're all at 10 shares. So the only player with options here is Ujang, and we'll see if he wants to do anything. Looks like not. We did see a friendly acquisition in the last stock round, which ended up being fairly consequential. I don't think we'll be seeing any more in the game, though. Companies are getting too expensive. And we're into the stock round. We'll see if there's any final adjustments of the portfolio going on here. Ken Kuhn is in the lead and has met his cert limit. Damana is in second place and has 6 shares to buy. Good news for him. He's only $500 behind, and he has 6 more shares he can buy. Jeremy and Ujang are trailing by a fair margin. Jeremy, in particular, with only 6 shares and a single company, has been eliminated from contention. Ujang technically trailing him, but probably in a little bit of a stronger position for the final game scoring. Don't imagine we'll see too many new companies floating here, probably just buying, paying shares, and trying to optimize your portfolio at this point. We'll have to cover some shorts. May see these NYOW shares being bought to close out these shorts. Otherwise, probably just looking for paying shares. Ujang selling out of the PLE, single permanent train there, maybe looking to pick up a train of longer length or better routes. Looks like he's covering his shorts. Jeremy buying the ANS. That 7 train is going to be running pretty well. The 4 train, unfortunately, has gone away. Looks like other players are eager to jump on the ANS as well. Ken is covering his short in the NYOW. Ujang buying the SR with a single 6 train. I don't think that's a high priority share. Jeremy buying the ANS still. Ken continuing to close his short position. Ujang seeing the light and hopping on the ANS as well. Jeremy finalizes the ANS distribution, and this company will be floating up. Everybody's closing their shorts. Damana buying the DLNW. PLE now. It's being sold. I think this is probably to cover shorts. Yep. So these shorts are coming back to bite Ken a little bit, and he at least is still ahead of Damana, but we'll see how that ends up playing out. He's going to have fewer shares than Damana, almost certainly. Ujang selling the H to cover shorts still. The only one with those shorts left is Ken. Damana is buying DLNW. Is he looking to steal this presidency? Potentially. I don't think Ujang has much liquidity to defend. NYOW almost out of shorts now. And now is. H is acting for Ken, just looking to clear the market, but not going to be able to without a bunch of loans. And everybody's passed. So looking at the situation here, Damana and Ken are neck and neck, and Ken has 1 share more than Damana. Ujang and Jeremy are neck and neck for last place, but Jeremy will be coming in last because he has 4 shares fewer. Everybody has permanent trains, so I think at this point it's mostly going to be just running routes. The tokens have mostly all been laid as well. There are companies with tokens, of course, but not a whole lot of opportunities to take advantage of them. So let's just look at the revenue here for these different companies, and we probably can skip through most of the rest of the game at this point. We'll do this operating round at least just to see if there's any interesting developments. 6 train running for 400, and he's taking loans in order to double jump, it looks like. He is double jumping, and then he'll pay off these loans. A lot of that goes on in the late game, just a little efficiency. If you can afford the interest, why not? Bess, he is upgrading Detroit and running a 5 train for 380. Might see him doing now. Probably not going to be taking loans. His revenue is really pretty low, and the interest would be probably more worth than the double jump. So he's just paying off loans for now. NYOW has a very full treasury. Unfortunately, he was unable to float another company, so he's not going to be able to fully buy permanent trains with this money. But we'll pick up at least 1 more permanent train probably. His route is a little bit lackluster, but probably still worth just using this money for another permanent train. Upgrading Rochester, and has a token, could leave it there if he wants, but maybe not worthwhile. Does that, running his 5 train for 360, and should be buying an 8 train here. He's paying off loans and still has money for the 8, but actually it doesn't pick it up. He does. Okay. It just got buried somewhere in the log. NYSW, still a 5-share company. Good news for Ujang. Running a 5 train for 270 and able to pay off the loan. ANS, so this is a company that also could potentially afford an 8 train. Has tokens spread all over the map, so maybe worth trying to do that. I would have to look at the routes a little bit more carefully. Probably going to be hard for him to run the 8 and the 7 efficiently now that I look at it, so may just want to pay off his loans for some extra stock appreciation. So runs for 500 and full pays. Going to be just paying off his loans here. Could actually, he's going to double jump either way, so it doesn't need to take loans to do that, but could do that next couple operating rounds if necessary. Getting up to 300 in value. You are also running a 7 and upgrading Scranton. He has less valuable tokens, so going to be running from Maritime into Chicago by way of Boston, Albany, New York, and Scranton, it looks like. And actually hitting Pittsburgh instead. That's doesn't really matter, Pittsburgh versus Chicago, just style points in terms of how zigzaggy you can make your run at this point. Paying for 410, actually can't pay any loans. Bad news for him. PLE running a 5 train. He is upgrading Buffalo and running for 340, half paying in order to cover his interest, and will pay off a loan. SR, pretty short run for him as well. Paying for 260, has to half pay. Going to see some interest paid, but no loans, it looks like. DLNW, full loans, kind of bad news for him. And he doesn't have the greatest tokens. He's been kind of split up here. So he may have to also half pay. He half pays and should be able to pay off some loans, at least 2. Good news for him. We are into the mergers and acquisition. Before we do this, though, because we may be skipping through most of this game, let's just look at the spreadsheet. So in the last OR, Damana is now comfortably ahead of Ken Kuhn, and he is running for $700 more than him. So Damana has, I think, won this game. Let's skip to the end of the mergers and acquisitions. Nothing happened there. Nothing will be happening in the friendly sales. So I think at this point we can skip to the end of the game. Just looking at this, Jeremy, the big change here is he's running 2 trains, but he's the sole investor in this company. He's going to be coming in. So actually, he's coming in 3rd place. Wow, I thought he was going to be losing out to Ujang, but looks like he's going to be able to hold on to 3rd. But the big picture is Damana versus Ken here, and Damana has pulled far enough ahead with a high enough lead in revenue that it looks like he's going to be winning. So we'll just skip to the end of the game at this point. Well played, Damana. He takes this by $700 or so. He was able to run out of Pittsburgh for most of this game. He had 2 tokens in Pittsburgh, was able to run those to great effect. Ken Kuhn was his closest competitor. He was running out of Philadelphia and Baltimore, which was quite effective, but just kind of fell behind in the end there. I think probably some of those shorts ended up hurting him more than he anticipated, because the stock round where we saw Damana finally pull ahead of him was where he was covering all of his shorts on the NYOW. So maybe not the best decision there, or maybe just a little miscalculation. Looking back at the early game, the Charleston player, that must have been, who was that? That was Ujang. So he wasn't able to really capitalized off of his Charleston and Cleveland position. And then I think it was Jeremy that was down south in Richmond that just never really went anywhere. Just very hard to break out of this box of all this coal. Your track just doesn't develop very well when you lose out on your tokens in Baltimore. So well played to Damana. I liked how he was able to acquire his company and consolidate the tokens late in the game to take advantage of that 7 train run. And he also had that clever move where he was able to secure the second token on Pittsburgh with the Boston and Albany by shorting the Cleveland company, changing operating order, and just leapfrogging him. So that was pretty clever. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with future videos